What's up, guys? It's Justin. I hope you're doing well. And as you can see, if you watched my last video, we've made a little upgrade to the channel and purchased a whiteboard, which we can now use to give you some really valuable information. And it's been a while since I rated the 3 apps that I drive on: UberEats, DoorDash, and GrubHub. And things change over time, especially these days with gas prices rising, with everything that's going on in the world. Things change quickly. So I felt like it was time to finally come back on, give you guys updated rankings on how I feel about the 3 apps, and finally I'll let you guys know which one I prefer driving on the most as of right now. Again, things can change, things are different market to market. You may have a very different experience than me, but I felt like it would be valuable to come on to share my information, so maybe new drivers have a little bit of guidance on which app they should use, or some more experienced drivers can maybe weigh in and let us know how they would rank these apps. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got a number of categories here. We have pay per hour, obviously how much I'm making per hour, the order size, really by dollar value. Distance is kind of factored in here as well, but really, are we getting large value orders, or are they a bunch of $4, $5, and $6 orders? Then we have order volume. How many orders are we getting? The wait time. This really comes in mostly to the restaurants. When we get to the restaurants, how long are we waiting for these orders to be picked up from these different apps? Then we have the app themselves, and that's going to factor in not just how easy it is to use, but also things like app crashing. DoorDash, sorry about that. And then of course we're going to have the overall experience, where I'm going to rank all 3 apps 1, 2, and 3. You can see the categories here. We're going to put which app is ranked first, second, and third for each category. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you find this valuable. If you do, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And with that, let's dive straight into this thing. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is probably the most important thing that people care about the most, and that is pay per hour. How much money can you make? And of course, I'm going to preface this again. You will probably have had a very different experience than me. Markets are completely different. You might make the most money on DoorDash or UberEats or GrubHub, and that's perfectly fine. But I can already tell you that as soon as I put something up here, somebody's going to run to the comments and say, this guy's an idiot. I make more on DoorDash than GrubHub. And then, you know what? Good for you. That's awesome. But this is my personal experience, and I hope you find this valuable. Pay per hour. The app that I've had the most success on here is GrubHub, and I am a right-handed writer, and this is not my right hand, so you're going to notice that that is not amazing, but we're going to move on as long as you can read it. So GrubHub is the most money that I make per hour on an average basis. If you guys have been following along with the channel, you know I've made upwards of $30 an hour multiple times, and that is amazing. Secondly, we have DoorDash. And yes, I know that's probably controversial. People really love to hate on DoorDash, but DoorDash is the app that I've made the second most money on per hour. That is just the reality of it. And when we get into some of these other categories, that'll kind of help to explain why. And then third, obviously, that leaves UberEats. Once again, some awesome handwriting there. But UberEats, so far, at least in my market, is the one that I make the least money per hour doing. And that's why you haven't seen me doing too many videos of UberEats, because I don't like driving around to make no money. It's good for content. You guys love when I'm miserable, but I like to make money while I'm making my videos, because I'm not monetized on YouTube yet. So if you want to subscribe to get me to 1,000 subscribers so I can be monetized and make money from these videos, that would be much appreciated. All right, we're moving on. The next category is order size. And order size, obviously, again, is how much money we're making on an order. Are we getting $5 orders, or are we getting $10 or $15 orders? So the order size is, once again, GrubHub. And I think that's what really contributes to that pay per hour, because on GrubHub, we typically have much larger orders. I'm talking $10, $12, $15. And the reason for that is that the tips are very large. I don't know if this is a customer-based thing. I don't know if GrubHub is just a more honest company and make sure you actually get all of your tips. Again, DoorDash, I don't want to hate on you. I'm just saying. But so far, GrubHub has definitely had the largest orders for me. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. I know some people have commented that they get terrible GrubHub orders, and for that, I am very sorry. But for me, they have been excellent. Coming in at second on order size, we have UberEats. While it is not my best pay per hour app, actually has pretty decent sized orders. I've found multiple that have $10 or $11 or $12. Now, sometimes they do hide the tip if it's a large enough tip, but overall, I found that the UberEats orders are kind of okay. Typically, the larger orders are for longer distances, but GrubHub obviously has that problem as well. That's just typically how it goes. And then, this is probably no surprise to anyone, but the smallest orders, again with the beautiful handwriting, that says DoorDash. DoorDash has the absolute smallest orders out there. You will constantly be bombarded with tiny, tiny orders. And if you like to sit through that and decline and decline and decline until you get one that is finally worth your time, that is great. Personally, I do not love that. I do drive for DoorDash quite a bit for some other reasons, but we'll get into that a little bit, like right now. The third category is volume. And yes, absolutely 100% hands down, the highest volume of any app as far as orders go is DoorDash. Like I said, you're gonna get berated with $5-6 orders, sometimes even less than that. You won't be surprised at all to see a $2 order on there, but you are getting orders almost constantly. Now, this may be different in different markets, but for me, DoorDash seems to reign supreme from a customer standpoint here. So of course, with more customers ordering, there are going to be more orders. Now, secondly, you're gonna have UberEats. Again, UberEats, not the greatest for actually getting the most orders, but when they do come in, as I told you, they're a little bit larger than DoorDash orders, so that's not the worst thing in the world. And then finally, the least frequent orders that I get are GrubHub orders. And that kind of makes sense. This all seems to have an inverse relationship where the larger orders are coming in more frequently and the smaller orders are coming in very often. That makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it seems like in the food delivery business, we can't necessarily have it all. I wish that I could just put GrubHub, but GrubHub does have the least orders as far as my market goes. Again, if you have the most orders on GrubHub in your market, that is excellent. That doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and you're wrong. It just means that we had a slightly different experience. Do not unlike this video. Do not unsubscribe to the channel just because our opinions are different. That is bad. All right, next we are moving on to wait time. And as far as orders go, whenever I'm using these specific apps, there seem to be these trends where most often DoorDash orders are ready the fastest. Now, can I necessarily explain this 100%? No, but I will say that DoorDash does seem to have a pretty good system as far as getting their orders into the restaurants, and that would explain why those orders are typically ready the fastest. Coming up in second place, we have, once again, UberEats. You'll see that UberEats, in my opinion, is the most mediocre of all the apps. The orders don't typically take that much longer than DoorDash orders. I have experienced a few times where I get in there and sit maybe for a little bit longer waiting for an UberEats order to be ready than a DoorDash order, but I would say that that difference is marginal, and if you're going to choose one app over the other, this is not really something to get hung up on too much because both DoorDash orders and UberEats orders are typically ready pretty quickly. The orders that are not ready pretty quickly are, you got it, GrubHub orders. Man, those G's are really hard to do with the left hand. Anyways, GrubHub orders take a long time to get ready. You'll go to a restaurant and a number of times sit there for 10 or 15 minutes because it seems like GrubHub does not submit their orders pretty much until you get to the restaurant. And that's very opposite of DoorDash or Uber Eats, where once you've received an order, that order is probably already cooking before you even accept it. But it seems like GrubHub doesn't send those orders into the restaurant until somebody has actually accepted the order and is on the way to the restaurant. So you can expect to probably do some waiting if you're doing GrubHub. Now, does that affect the hourly rate? Yes, but not necessarily enough to drop it out of first place for me personally. And again, all of these things are related. I make the most on GrubHub per hour, even though I wait the longest at restaurants because the orders are the largest. That's kind of how you can use this to your advantage to figure out which app works best for you. Now, which app actually works best is a completely separate question. And first off, I just want to say that all three of these apps are obviously good at different things. In my personal opinion, I think that GrubHub is the best app to use just because it does the best job of breaking down the steps very simply on what you need to do to get that food from the restaurant to the customer. It walks you through literally everything. It has a marker for when you have picked up the food for leaving the restaurant, and I think that's great, not just from a driver standpoint, but also for the customer to know exactly where their food is, where their driver is, and what is happening along the way. So I think that personally GrubHub is the best app. I just think it's really easy to use, and if you're a beginner driver, I would definitely recommend trying GrubHub because I think it's just so simple to understand, and then you can always move on to something that is maybe a little more confusing. Personally, I think the most confusing app out of the three is Uber Eats, but that does not give it the third ranking on the app, and here's why. Uber Eats doesn't really give that many steps along the way as far as the delivery process goes. It's pretty much just before you pick up the food and after you pick up the food. There's no clicking through to really show you that you've picked up the food and you're on your way or anything like that. It is quite simply before the food, after the food. That's it. And for somebody who's been doing a lot of driving, that's pretty simple. You already understand what you need to do. But if you're new to the food delivery market, that could be kind of confusing because it doesn't really walk you through each individual step. You have a little bit more wiggle room as far as what you're supposed to be doing. And even though it always ends up in the same result, getting the food delivered, it can just be a little bit more confusing. Now, I just told you that that was the most confusing app, but why is DoorDash ranked third? Well, to be quite honest with you, I don't think that DoorDash necessarily has a terrible app, but what I will tell you is that that app crashes all the time. If you watch my 24-hour DoorDash challenge, that app crashed right in the middle of it and completely threw off the video. I was livid. I could not believe that after doing 7 hours of DoorDashing, the app just decided to turn off for an hour. And I mean, what if you have a delivery on the way? Luckily, I had literally just dropped off a delivery when the app crashed, but what if you have a 15-pound bag of food? What are you supposed to do with that? If the app crashes, you can't get that food to the person, and then you just eat the food. Like, it's very frustrating. You can tell my tone of voice has changed because the app can be very frustrating when it crashes. And in my opinion, GrubHub and Uber Eats apps do not crash near as often. In fact, I've never had them crash at all. So even though this app is actually pretty well designed and the customer support team is pretty awesome on there, I just can't rank this anything other than third because, to be quite frank, it just sucks when the app crashes, and it crashes way too often for something like this. So that leaves us with an overall impression of which app I like the most, the second most, and the absolute least. And this probably won't surprise you guys too much based on what you're seeing, but overall, I gotta give the #1 spot to GrubHub. Can you see that down there? Yes, GrubHub. Just because, again, I'm making the most per hour and the orders are pretty large, especially with gas prices the way that they are right now. It's really nice to just know exactly where you're driving. Go pick up the food, take it. Even if it's a longer distance, I'm not spending that much time driving around because these large orders keep me busy. Now, obviously, the app being the best also helps as well. And when you combine all those things together, making the most money per hour and then the app being the best, even though you are waiting a long time at restaurants, that's okay in my opinion, because clearly it's not enough to drop that hourly rate down below these other apps. Now, the second app, in my opinion, and again, I'll probably take some heat for this, is DoorDash. In my market, at least, DoorDash makes the second most sense for me, just because Uber Eats is not frequently used enough to actually have the order volume to make it up into this upper echelon of pay. Uber Eats, I make the least money on, and if this app was just absolutely tremendous on everything else, and the wait times were 0, and the order volume was incredible, I mean, then it would make a difference. But you see here, it's mediocre in pretty much everything, in my opinion, and then I make the least money per hour on it. So I can't rank it above DoorDash, even though I don't have that many amazing things to say about DoorDash. I just can't do that. So, as I was just saying, Uber Eats comes in third, and that means our final rankings are GrubHub first, DoorDash second, and Uber Eats third. So if you're a new driver, if you're a more experienced driver, I'd love to hear what your opinions are on all of this right here. Obviously, again, these are my opinions. This does not have to be your opinions. I'm sure I'm going to get some very heated comments about, oh, I make the most money on DoorDash, which means you're wrong. No, I'm not, and you're not. These are just my experiences. So I hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, I'd really appreciate if you'd give this video a like and make sure that you subscribe to the channel as well, because we are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. I really think this whiteboard is going to be the difference here. And even though this handwriting is not world class necessarily, I think it's enough to get us to 1,000 subscribers. So go ahead, subscribe to the channel, like the video. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you soon.